My name is Laura Carter, and nothing could have prepared me for the way my entire life unraveled in a single afternoon. It started with a simple bank notification, a warning about suspicious activity on one of my accounts. I saw it flash across my phone screen while I was in the middle of preparing a presentation for an important client. Deadlines, pressure, endless emails. It all left me no room to breathe, let alone worry about a random alert. I silenced my phone, thinking I'd check it later. That was my first mistake. By the time the office calmed down and my second cup of coffee wore off, I finally pulled out my phone to catch up on messages. That's when I remembered the alert and opened my banking app. My stomach dropped. Zero. 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 My checking account, savings, even my emergency fund, every single account I had worked so hard to build was completely drained. I blinked, hoping it was some sort of glitch. But then I tapped on the transactions. My heart pounded faster with every swipe. Luxury hotels in New York. Designer stores in Paris. First-class flights. Spa packages. Jewelry. None of them were mine. I hadn't even been on a vacation in over a year. I sat frozen, my fingers trembling as I gripped the phone. Christine, my closest friend at work, must have noticed something in my face because she hurried over to my cubicle. Laura? Are you okay? I held up my phone, my voice barely a whisper. My accounts, they're empty. Her eyes widened.
What? How?
I stare at the screen, the transactions glaring back at me like taunts. I think I know who did it.
Amy.
My mother. The woman I hadn't trusted in years. The woman who always knew how to twist things around until she got what she wanted. We weren't exactly close. After everything she'd done, I kept my distance. But I had made one mistake. Years ago, back in college, I had added her to an account to help manage my tuition payments. I thought I'd closed it when I graduated. I hadn't. I grabbed my purse and ran out of the office. I needed answers. I needed to see for myself. The cab ride home felt like it lasted forever. My mind was a storm, memories, fears, and anger swirling in every direction. I burst into my apartment, hoping it was some twisted misunderstanding. But Amy was gone. The spare key was missing. Her suitcase wasn't by the closet. Her perfume didn't linger in the air like it usually did when she visited. On the kitchen counter, I found an envelope with my name written in her handwriting. Inside was a single-page letter. Laura, I needed a fresh start. I'm tired of scraping by and watching others live the life I deserve. I've taken what I need to begin again somewhere far.
Don't worry about me.
I'll be fine. Maybe one day, you'll understand. Amy. My legs gave out, and I sank to the floor. The betrayal hit harder than I expected. She didn't even apologize. She didn't even pretend it was for a good reason. She had just taken everything and left. As if that wasn't enough, my phone rang. I nearly didn't answer it, thinking it was another fraud alert. But the voice on the other end wasn't from the bank. Miss Carter? This is James Woods, your grandmother Anna's lawyer. I'm sorry to inform you that Anna passed away last night. My breath caught. Grandma Anna. The one person in my family who ever loved me without conditions. She was kind, steady, and always reminded me of who I could be, even when I doubted myself. I hadn't seen her in months. Life had gotten in the way, and I had promised I'd visit next month. Now she was gone. My eyes blurred as tears welled up. I didn't even know what to process first, my mother's theft or my grandmother's death. Everything felt heavy and unreal, like I was standing in the middle of a collapsing house. That's when I called John. John and I had been friends since we were teenagers. We drifted in and out of each other's lives over the years, but he was always someone I could count on when things got bad. I didn't even have to say much on the phone, he heard it in my voice. But Amy was gone. The spare key was missing. Her suitcase wasn't by the closet. Her perfume didn't linger in the air like it usually did when she visited. On the kitchen counter, I found an envelope with my name written in her handwriting. Inside was a single-page letter. Laura, I needed a fresh start. I'm tired of scraping by and watching others live the life I deserve. I've taken what I need to begin again somewhere far.
Don't worry about me. I'll be fine.
Maybe one day you'll understand.
Amy.
My legs gave out, and I sank to the floor. The betrayal hit harder than I expected. She didn't even apologize. She didn't even pretend it was for a good reason. She had just taken everything and left. As if that wasn't enough, my phone rang. I nearly didn't answer it, thinking it was another fraud alert. But the voice on the other end wasn't from the bank. "Miss Carter? This is James Woods, your grandmother Anna's lawyer. I'm sorry to inform you that Anna passed away last night." My breath caught. Grandma Anna. The one person in my family who ever loved me without conditions. She was kind, steady, and always reminded me of who I could be, even when I doubted myself. I hadn't seen her in months. Life had gotten in the way, and I had promised I'd visit next month. Now she was gone. My eyes blurred as tears welled up. I didn't even know what to process first, my mother's theft or my grandmother's death. Everything felt heavy and unreal, like I was standing in the middle of a collapsing house. That's when I called John. John and I had been friends since we were teenagers. We'd drifted in and out of each other's lives over the years, but he was always someone I could count on when things got bad. I didn't even have to say much on the phone, he heard it in my voice. 15 minutes later, he was at my door with 2 coffees and a look of quiet worry. I didn't speak as I let him in. I just collapsed into his arms and cried. He held me for what felt like hours, never rushing me, never asking too many questions. Just being there, solid and steady, like a lighthouse in the middle of a storm. When the tears finally stopped and I pulled away, something flickered inside me. Not rage, not despair, determination. I wiped my face and looked John in the eye. "She stole everything, John. Everything. Then we're going to get it back," he said quietly. "Every last bit." And in that moment I believed him, because somewhere beneath the pain, I could feel something I hadn't felt in a long time.
Strength.
The next morning, I walked into James Wood's office with Christine by my side. I hadn't slept much. My mind kept spinning between memories of my grandmother and the cold emptiness Amy had left behind. But I held myself together. I had to. James greeted us politely and gestured toward the leather chairs across from his desk. He was a tall man, maybe in his 60s, with silver hair and a calm demeanor that made you feel like you were in capable hands. I was grateful for that. "Laura," he began gently, "I know this is a difficult time, so I'll get straight to the point. Your grandmother left behind more than memories." I nodded, bracing myself for whatever came next. He slid a thick folder across the desk. Anna Carter was the sole owner of a boutique hotel group, 6 properties across the country, a few international. She built them from the ground up. The entire estate is worth approximately $15 million, including real estate, cash investments, and shares. I blinked, not sure if I'd heard him right. 15 million? Christine let out a small gasp beside me. James smiled softly. "Every bit of it now belongs to you. Your grandmother left everything in your name, full ownership, with no shared claims." My heart thudded. What about my mother? He shook his head. "Amy was specifically excluded. Your grandmother was clear. She believed Amy had taken more than enough already and didn't deserve anything more." I felt a strange mix of shock, guilt, and justice. Grandma had always seen through Amy, and even now she was still protecting me. James pulled out a smaller envelope and placed it gently in front of me. "There's one more thing. Anna wrote you a personal journal before she passed. It includes her thoughts, guidance, and, knowing her, plenty of strong opinions." I opened the envelope and carefully removed the small leather-bound book. Her handwriting was still the same, elegant, slanted, and full of life. On the inside cover, she'd written, "Laura, my brave girl. Use your freedom wisely. And when the snake hisses, let it think it's winning. That's how you win bigger. Love always, Anna." I closed the journal slowly. My eyes stung, but I didn't cry. Not this time. I felt something else rising inside me, a power I hadn't known I had. James handed me a final document. "Also, just so you're aware, Amy's already trying to contest the will. She's currently in New Zealand. She filed a preliminary complaint with an international firm, but your grandmother's legal documentation is airtight. It won't be easy for her. Of course she was. Amy couldn't help herself. Even after stealing from me, she still wanted more. But now I had more than she could imagine. And I wasn't the scared, quiet daughter she used to manipulate. Christine squeezed my hand as we left the office. Your grandmother believed in you, Laura. She knew you were stronger than her. You just needed a reason to fight. That reason arrived the next morning in the form of an email. The subject line read, "Let's talk about the will." The message was as fake sweet and manipulative as ever. Laura, I know things look bad, but we're still family. Don't let lawyers get in the way of what's rightfully mine. I didn't know Grandma was going to cut me out. We need to talk, just the two of us. Maybe over a call? Or I can come back to the States soon. Love you. I didn't reply.
Not yet.
But I read the message twice. Then I opened Anna's journal again and reread her words. Let the snake think it's winning. I looked at Christine. She wants to come back. Christine raised an eyebrow. And you're going to let her? I nodded. Not because I want her here, but because I want her to think she's winning. Christine tilted her head, realizing what I meant. You're setting a trap. She used my name, my accounts, my life like it was hers to take. But this time, I'm going to use hers, her greed, her pride, her desperation. I wasn't the same woman who had collapsed on the kitchen floor.
I had been betrayed. Yes.
But now I had something bigger. A legacy. A voice. A plan. And Amy had no idea what was coming. We didn't waste time. The moment I decided to respond to Amy's email, everything shifted into motion. I wrote back with a warm, cautious tone, just believable enough to make her think I was torn. I told her I was shocked by the will, too, that I didn't want this to come between us, and that maybe, just maybe, there was still something for her here. I could almost hear her giddy laughter from across the ocean. By the end of the day, Christine had flight options lined up and had accidentally let it slip in a follow-up email that Grandma Anna's master bedroom hadn't been touched since she passed, and might still hold valuable personal items Amy could sort through. It was bait, and we all knew she'd take it. Anna's house, my house now, was in upstate New York, overlooking a small lake that shimmered in the morning light. It had always been peaceful, almost sacred. Especially the master bedroom. No one, not even Amy, had ever been allowed in there. That room had belonged solely to Anna. It felt right to use it now, not to defile her memory but to protect what she left behind. With John, Christine, and a tech expert named David, we transformed that bedroom into a controlled stage. David installed discrete cameras in the ceiling fan, under the vanity mirror, and inside a fake decorative lamp. Every angle of the room was covered. We hid fake documents under the mattress, business proposals, offshore account access, stock certificates, all entirely fabricated but incredibly convincing. A jewelry box on the dresser gleamed with costume diamonds, but under the right lighting, they looked real enough to tempt. On the desk sat a sleek laptop, powered on and logged in. It looked like an oversight, but every keystroke was monitored. Any email sent or document opened would be mirrored to David's server. Amy didn't stand a chance. 2 days later, John picked her up at JFK. He told me later that she walked out of the terminal wearing oversized sunglasses, a silk scarf, and a grin that didn't quite reach her eyes. She hugged him like nothing had ever happened. "I've missed you," she said in that rehearsed voice of hers. John played along, calm and charming, like we'd agreed. When she arrived at the house, I opened the door with a smile that felt carved into my face. "Mom," I said softly. "Laura," she breathed, pulling me into an embrace that made my skin crawl. "You look just like her." She meant Anna. That was new. I played the part, hesitant, guarded, but open enough to sell the illusion. I told her I didn't want to fight anymore. Maybe we could start over. "You can stay here for a while," I said. "Take the master bedroom. I haven't been able to touch anything in there." Her eyes lit up for a split second, then she masked it with forced humility. "Are you sure? That room meant so much to your grandmother." I nodded slowly. She'd want us to heal. She moved in that night. By morning, the game had begun. The cameras recorded everything. She waited until the house was quiet, then started exploring. First, she flipped through the documents under the mattress, snapping pictures on her phone. Then she tried opening the safe behind the old painting. When she couldn't crack the code, she muttered something under her breath and went for the laptop. That's when the real show started. Amy spent hours that evening on the computer, scanning through the false business plans we'd created. Christine and I watched from the study downstairs, David's screen mirroring every click. The moment she copied the fake documents and began sending them to a contact listed as investor opportunity, I felt my chest tighten. She was taking the bait. Every email was flagged. Every attachment had a tracker. David nodded. She thinks she's forwarding legitimate intel. This is gold. The next day, Amy wore one of Anna's scarves, her lipstick a little brighter, her tone dripping with false gratitude. I feel so at peace here, Laura, she said as we ate breakfast. Maybe I needed to come back home to remember what matters. I stirred my tea and smiled. I'm glad you're here. But beneath that calm, something inside me burned. I wasn't looking for peace. I was building justice, brick by calculated brick. Amy had taught me one thing better than anyone: how to lie with a straight face. And now, she was about to learn what it felt like to believe a lie so sweet it destroyed you. The lunch meeting was set at an upscale restaurant downtown. White tablecloths, crystal glasses, and waiters who spoke in hushed tones. Amy had emailed a group of investors she'd met during her brief social climbing days, claiming she had access to a limited portfolio of boutique hotel properties passed down from Anna Carter. All completely fabricated. All part of the trap. Christine and I arrived early and were seated discreetly 2 tables away. We wore earpieces connected to David's mic feed from Anna's house, just in case Amy tried anything shady while we were away. But today, the battlefield was right in front of us. Amy strutted in wearing a tailored blazer that screamed money and a confidence she hadn't earned. She greeted the 2 investors, men in their late 40s with sharp suits and sharper eyes, as if she'd known them for years. Handshakes, fake laughter, small talk. Then came the pitch. She pulled out the glossy folder filled with our planted documents and began laying them on the table. These are preliminary offers, she said with a grin, flipping through floor plans, fabricated occupancy reports, and valuation charts that would make any investor drool. My late mother, Anna Carter, left these properties to the family, and I'm managing the next phase of expansion.
Christine nudged me.
She's using her grandmother's name like that? I didn't respond. I was watching Amy's face. She believed every word coming out of her mouth. That was the most dangerous part, how natural lying came to her. 10 minutes into her presentation, Christine excused herself and stepped outside. 2 minutes later, Amy's phone rang. She paused and glanced at the screen. Sorry, I need to take this. She stepped away from the table, phone to her ear. Christine's voice, disguised and urgent, came through the line. This is Morgan Taylor from Wells Bank's fraud department. We've detected unusual international activity connected to a business account linked to your name. Can you verify a few transactions, several files sent to offshore addresses? Amy stammered. No, that's not me. That must be a mistake. Ma'am, Christine continued firmly, if this isn't clarified soon, federal fraud charges may apply. Please hold for escalation. Amy's face drained of color. I stood up, walked over to the investors' table, and calmly placed a tablet between them. Gentlemen, I said, before you make any decisions, I think you'll want to see this. Amy turned just in time to see the screen come alive. Footage from the master bedroom. There she was, clear as day, snooping through the drawers, photographing documents, attempting to access the safe. Another clip showed her sending emails from the monitored laptop, using my grandmother's name and stolen assets. The investors froze. Amy rushed over, stuttering. This is a misunderstanding. Laura, please, this is a setup. I looked her in the eye.
No, Mom.
This is you. This is who you've always been. The only difference is now the world gets to see it. The investors stood without a word. One of them glanced at Amy with a look of pure disgust. We don't do business with liars, he said coldly, and both men walked out. Amy turned to me, her mask slipping. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I said, calm and clear. You ruined yourself. I just stopped pretending you hadn't. The restaurant was quiet except for the clinking of cutlery and the distant hum of conversation at other tables. Amy looked small, disoriented, like someone waking up in a nightmare she couldn't escape. Later that afternoon, James Wood's office felt like a courtroom. Amy sat across from me, her makeup smudged, her hair unbrushed. The woman who had arrived from New Zealand, so full of pride, was gone. In her place sat someone finally forced to look in a mirror. I handed her an envelope. A one-way ticket to Boise, Idaho. There's a small apartment there under your name. You start over.
Quietly.
Far from here. She blinked. And if I don't, then I press charges. Full extent of the law. Financial fraud. Identity theft. Attempted wire fraud. I have it all. Amy didn't speak for a long moment. Then, with a bitter breath, she opened the envelope and stared at the ticket. Her hands shook. You think you've won, she muttered. I stood.
No, Mom.
I just stopped losing. And with that, I walked out, no longer the daughter craving love from someone who never knew how to give it. Just a woman who had finally, truly, reclaimed her name. Months passed quietly, but they were anything but uneventful. Running the boutique hotel empire had become my full-time world. I poured myself into it, not out of greed or ambition, but because I wanted to honor what my grandmother had built. Anna had turned dreams into stone and glass, into guest rooms and rooftop gardens. She had done it with grit, taste, and unshakable purpose. Now it was my turn. But I didn't just inherit a business. I inherited wounds, some mine, some left behind in the wake of Amy's decades-long path of manipulation. So I started something new, a restitution fund. We went back through old records, old emails, and old transactions. David helped trace people Amy had swindled, friends, small business owners, even distant relatives. Some had written her off. Others still carried resentment. One woman cried when we were funded a $12,000 investment Amy had taken for a fake property deal in Arizona 10 years ago. Every check I sent, every message I wrote, felt like another stitch closing a wound that had been open far too long. Christine became my operations manager. John handled property development. And now and then, when I sat alone in the garden of our flagship hotel with Anna's journal open in my lap, I could almost feel her beside me, quiet, smiling, proud. Still, even as the business flourished and peace began to take root, there was a name that lingered in the back of my mind like a ghost that refused to vanish.
Amy.
I didn't speak to her, but I checked in, quietly, from a distance. She had taken the one-way ticket to Idaho, settled in Boise. She worked part-time at a cafe on the edge of town, far from the city center, under a different last name. She didn't post on social media,
Didn't reach out.
didn't cause trouble. She was living, simply, almost invisibly. One crisp October afternoon, I flew to Boise. I didn't tell anyone, not Christine, not John. I needed to do this on my own. The cafe was small, with mismatched chairs and hand-painted mugs. She was at the counter when I walked in, wiping down a tray. For a second, I didn't think she'd recognize me. Her eyes were softer, her posture less sharp. But when she looked up and met my gaze, I saw it, a flicker of something old and familiar. But also something new. She didn't speak right away. Neither did I. I stepped forward and placed a wrapped parcel on the counter. Inside was Anna's silver hand mirror, the one she always kept on her dresser. Ornate, heavy, engraved with delicate ivy vines. It wasn't valuable in money, but it held weight. Amy unwrapped it slowly, her hands trembling just enough to make me notice. She used to say it never lied. I said quietly, that it showed you what you didn't want to see. Amy nodded, her throat tightening. She was right. I waited. No tears. No dramatic apologies. Just a long pause and a quiet breath. Will I ever see you again? She asked, not pleading, just wondering. I looked at her, at the mirror in her hand, at the weight of everything behind us. Then I said, maybe. I turned and walked out into the cool Idaho air, not with a heavy heart, but with one finally at peace. That night, back in my hotel suite overlooking the city skyline, I stood by the window and let the silence wrap around me. Not revenge, not victory,
Just something far more lasting.
justice. I had broken the cycle. I had built something new. And as I looked ahead to the future, I knew this story wasn't about what I had lost. It was about what I chose to become.